I mean, that's nice, Archie.
Yeah, it's quite something, isn't it?
That was my genuine reaction to my first shots with a very special gun.
There's no other way to describe it.
Today we've teamed up with Archie from Sportarm to check out the best of British gunmaking, both in theory and in practice.
We should probably introduce the gun.
We should.
Hi guys, this is a J. Purdey and Sons over and under true side lock best gun with game scene engraving, 28-inch barrels, ventilated top rib. Ventilated top rib's a bit weird.
A little bit odd, just helps reduce some of that weight down a bit.
Yeah. Built on a Woodward style action.
Dates from the late 80s, engraved by Ken Hunt. Beautiful, beautiful game scene engraving. You get some really nice stuff, but I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. With some really lovely subtle colour case hardening, which just offsets it really nicely. Some really nice acantha scroll work.
And a very, very peng piece of wood.
Yeah, and a really, really lovely piece of wood.
Yes.
Yes.
It really doesn't take much explaining. I vote that before we go back to the shop and look at some of the nicest over and unders ever made,
Yeah.
we go and shoot this at something a little bit better than a quartering going away target.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. Wow. Let's go. So we thought, seeing as we spent an entire video waxing lyrical about how Italian side locks are the best side locks, it might be worth some of our time
To look at an English one.
to look at an English one and then some English ones.
Yeah. A little bit of compare and contrast.
This is a different kind of beast.
Yeah.
When I shot one of the new ones, the Royal Berks, the only thing I could compare it to is like going from a high-end sports car to a single-seater.
Yeah.
You are entirely connected to what you're doing. It's totally lively. It's not the same.
It's almost ineffable the way that it just is so natural. The way that you don't need to think about what you're doing at all with it.
No, and it breaks stuff really well.
Yeah.
Like and it's only a little 28-inch gun. It shouldn't handle well by modern standards.
By modern standards.
Yeah, the 28-inch gun is dead.
But actually, you find when it's something this nice and it comes up that well, you just don't actually need the longer barrels.
No, not really.
And you're quite a lot taller than me and do most of your shooting with 30 and 32-inch guns and breaking stuff without any trouble at all.
Yeah, gracefully almost for me.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's a really tough one, right? Because I know the comment section, as always, will be filled with, yeah, but my Mossberg 500 can do the same. It is true that a shotgun is a very basic thing. No different to a car.
No, absolutely.
It's a really difficult thing to sit here and go that this gun, which is £80,000 second-hand, new, including VAT, you're well into the 200,000
Yeah,
mark.
and at least a 2-year wait.
It's a very difficult thing to sit here and go, one should buy one of these. I think the better thing would be, if I had the money, would I buy one? Let's shoot a bit more and then I'll take you guys inside and give you the head to toe on this. It's lip-bitingly good. Whilst we have the keys to the racks here at Sportarm, it feels rude not to go through and have a look at their extensive range of English over and unders, given that opportunities to compare a Purdey, a Woodward and a Boss with a few others is pretty rare. But we're going to start with this one, which is the one we shot this morning, which was so natural to shoot. And that's not always a good thing, right, when you're faced with a 60-yard Shondell, but for 90% of average driven game, it's all you want. A gun that shoots where you want it to shoot and does what it's told without having to tell it too much. The gun is a 1969 built gun with a 15.5-inch stock, and it's stocked in outrageously beautiful wood for a Purdey. A lot of the time you'll see them with slightly more classic or slightly less vibrant wood than this, but I mean, I'm not complaining. It's beautiful and it fits me quite well. If only I had a spare £79,995. Or, as I've been trying to negotiate with Archie, a meal deal a day for the rest of his life. I think it's a fantastic deal. Given that a meal deal when he's 80 is going to be 35 quid, he will win. Sort of. You have a beetleback safety on the top there, and the classic Woodward action, Mark J. Purdey and Son, mallard on the bottom and pheasants flying on both sides. And the engraving is spectacular because it's engraved by Ken Hunt, and not that there aren't other amazing engravers out there, but there's just something about his style that is fantastic. The way that he uses shade and the basic lines in the background to give depth. If you look in the background on the horizon here, you've got these trees on the horizon, but if you look close, they're not really trees. They're just a series of dots and lines, and they're pretty blurry. They don't really mean much until you move that gun further away from your face, and that is special. You know, anyone can make a real looking tree in the background, but to make shading that looks like a tree is pretty cool. I know it sounds really pathetic, but the hand engraver's art can be quite dull, but it's those little intricacies that make guns truly special. Around it is that beautiful large engraving. It's absolutely stunning. Beautiful deep carved fences onto chopper lump barrels. It has a ventilated top rib, which is all hand stippled. And again, I know it's a bit pathetic, and these things, they are some of their parts, but there are certain parts that fascinate me more. A hand stippled top rib, totally unnecessary. Absolutely in love with it. What more could you possibly want? You have finned barrels there, so they meet up with the fore-end wood just beautifully. And again, things that are totally unnecessary, but just make a gun like this stand out from the rest. The amount of handwork and heritage that is in this gun is outstanding. And I am massively endeared to it because, well, it's like the wand chooses the wizard, right? It clearly liked me and I clearly liked it. Bear with me 2 seconds. I'm gonna go grab a Purdey from a case over there that has quite possibly the coolest engraving of any Purdey I've ever seen. This one is 90,000. It really is a privilege to get to come and play with literally some of the finest and best guns in the world. This is on their round action. Could be one of my favorite types of engraving, that boulder canvas with the birds and the heads and bits coming out of it. It's something you don't see too often, but where every time I do, I go, that is a really hard thing to pull off nicely, and it is done fantastically. If we go across the top as well, on the fences and the top leaf, you have oak leaves and acorns. You know, I don't mind the game scene and with the standalone engraving of the scroll engraving in the front, and that's not bad, and the two things always work together, and there's always a lovely part where they join, but actually putting them all in together, I mean, look at that. Isn't that stunning? You've got snipe, woodcock, ducks, finches, capercaillie, quail, squirrels, butterflies. I mean, I've never shot a butterfly, but we'll add it to the list. This is quite a later gun. This is 2009 built. Perhaps so it doesn't have the heritage or whatever that the other one has. It's Smith engraved, which is fantastically done, as we said. I thought it rude not to share it with you. As a gun in itself, it's very beautiful. And the stock spec is all nice. There's a lot of nice things about it, but I mean, you'll rarely see something that good looking. Engraving's really personal, right? I'm always interested to hear people's opinions, certainly when it comes to gold inlay, case killer hardening, brush bright finishes. But I can't see anybody not looking at this and not getting lost in it. What's interesting is today that we've discovered that it's actually important that a gun fits you regardless of how expensive it is.
Yep, that is very true.
One does have to be careful when buying older, fine English guns.
You do, but as with all of our guns, it comes with a full 12-month mechanical warranty. These are relatively modern in comparison to some of the older English guns that we do see. So, I mean, barrel wall thickness and proof, I mean, they've got loads of life in them still. And as you can see from today, it clearly works.
Talk to me about steel in an old English over and under.
This has obviously been proofed relatively recently. So providing there is no more than quarter choke in the gun, it will be absolutely fine for standard steel. High performance, I'm afraid, is a bit of a no-go, but standard steel will be absolutely fine. But I mean, also, I mean, there is a sight element that at this level anyway, if you're going to be looking to purchase something like this, then an extra couple of £100 for a slab of bismuth or tungsten is probably not really going to be a big...
No, and you probably own a big heavy-duty gun anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
That is, I don't think anyone should be buying a gun like that for everyday use.
No.
It would almost be a bit rude to do that.
Completely agree, and it's not designed for that. It's not designed for taking out on really wet days and going to shoot 400 birds with. It's
not without having a service the same night.
Exactly.
So this is the last Woodward ever made by James Woodward.
It is indeed, yes. Very, very special gun, real piece of history. So it's not the last serial number in the Woodward records. There was one set of barrels made after this, but it's the last complete gun made by them before Purdey took the company over.
In 1949.
1949, exactly. So the gun's dated 1948. So yeah, it's really a very, very, very special piece of shooting history. So straight hand stock, double trigger, a little bit more unusual on an English over and under, but still nonetheless comes up very, very nicely, mounts very, very well.
Do you see many Woodward over and unders with a single trigger system?
We do. So most of them were made with a single trigger, but I mean, we do still come across quite a few with the double from this period. It's sort of not an uncommon thing. I mean, Woodward, as we know, they never made that many over and unders, and Purdey still build guns on that action today. They're still, yeah, it's one of the significant reasons why Purdey wanted to buy the Woodward name was for the over and under action.
So out of interest, from a customer's point of view, from a collector's point of view, is it wiser to buy a Woodward or a Purdey? Which one is more desirable?
It really depends. Purdeys will always achieve a lot more on the market than Woodwards will do. We never quite achieve the same price point for a Purdey or for a Woodward as we would do for a Purdey. So it really depends what you're looking for. If you're wanting something that's a little bit more lightweight, a bit faster handling, then the Woodwards always were a little bit more like that than the Purdeys. The Purdeys are on a slightly chunkier, beefier action because they were a little bit worried that it wasn't going to be strong enough. Quite funny, really, because it's one of the strongest actions ever built. But it really depends what sort of thing you're looking for. It's not just a museum piece. It's a working living thing with a soul like the guns that we looked at earlier.
I suppose the problem with something like this is there's even more of an onus as an owner of something like this to care for it and maintain it for the next generation.
Absolutely there is. But I mean, it would be a great shame if it was shot away and never saw the light of day again because someone was too scared to use it, if that makes sense.
That is a proper piece of history.
It really is.
Whilst we're rummaging and you're indulging my curiosity,
Yes.
can we have a look at a Boss over and under?
Of course we can.
I mean, this is about as cool as a gun gets.
Made in the heyday of English gun making, finished in 1927 for a Wall Street trader. It doesn't really get much more special than this. Handles and feels just like nothing else. We've never come across another one from this period, and we've never come across one in that condition.
There's very few places in the world where you can get two guns and put them side by side of these qualities of Woodward, an original Woodward and an original Boss from similar kind of eras.
It sort of shows what English gun making was like back in the early 1900s. It's just beggars belief quite how skilled these craftsmen were with what they were able to do and the level of work and hand finishing that goes into them.
What is interesting between them is actually the way that they both hinge and how the Boss system is pretty unique to Boss, and the Woodward system can be seen, certainly hints of that Woodward system can be seen in many guns nowadays.
Boss's mechanism of putting guns together is very, very unique. As we said, Purdey still build guns on this action today and sort of copied by many other people within the trade.
Inspired.
Exactly.
Inspired.
That's exactly the word we're looking for. And yeah, it's something that we are certainly used to seeing on quite a few other makers. Boss, however, it's pretty rare to see another gun that goes together and comes apart like this.
The Valmet is the only one I can think of that comes apart similarly in that it lifts up.
Yeah.
And that's done in a similar way with the paddles, but the paddles are about an inch big. But it is interesting how these things go together, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's the level of engineering involved and hand filing to get that to that level, and for it to go together so crisply is just unbelievably special. Now the fore end as well it's very special. The way that Boss have designed it with pistons that come out along, and this extra level of detailing we can see on here is copied on quite a few other makers have copied this. Rosini, Caesar Guarini, but none have the pistons to help the opening and closing of the gun, which just means that the whole thing is just so smooth and so crisp. There's the reason why they are one of the 3 best gun makers in the world.
They might take the crown, you know.
Yeah. No, I mean, their over and unders. I mean, we sold one of their over and unders the other day that was made in 1911. I mean, that's really going some.
That is an old gun.
That is an old gun. I mean, it's still in beautiful condition, and they were a long way ahead of everybody else in the English trade doing that.
There is something really difficult about Bosses. Like, I do like a Purdey and I do like a Woodward, and every time I see one I think they're very nice, but as soon as you put it next to a Boss, they don't do the same thing to me.
Particularly in a 20 ball. And the ribless action along the top, off the back of the video that we did a few years ago on the ribless Barazzi, this was the basis for that design.
Hey, the beauty of toys is they are for playing with and sharing.
Exactly.
So if you buy this, you have to share it with me and Archie.
Yeah, here.
You have. This is a gun. In fact, you've got a pair of guns here made by D.H. Sinnerton, who is potentially significantly less well known than the 3 brands we've looked at already.
Yeah. But nonetheless, still an English-made over and under, built on the Boss action, which we've just looked at.
It is identical, isn't it?
Yeah,
Like
it is.
every part of it.
David Sinnerton is one of the country's best independent gunsmiths, London trained. He built a select number of guns on various different actions for various clients, and this is a really, really lovely pair.
So these are potentially for the man who wants a nice pair of London-made guns to use.
Yes, exactly. If you're wanting something that is London-made, reliable, modern, you're probably not going to be quite so worried about damaging them or getting them wet in the way that you might do with them.
There's still 80,000 for the pair, so you're not really going to be looking to rag them to hell.
No, of course you're not.
But the engraving is also something that you probably would never see on a Boss.
No,
so if you're
of course,
after a weird hybrid, it's a good weird hybrid.
Yes.
So there are modern-made English guns that are still worth good money.
Yes,
without
absolutely.
big names on them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, there's various other companies such as Smith & Torrox or White & Co. who are making some really lovely guns on similar actions to this, but you're still getting a very, very well-made gun made in the UK for much less money.
Thank you for watching, guys. This channel is made possible by our amazing sponsors. You can find out more about them in the description down below. And if you want to support the channel, you can join as a member. You get loads of extra content, well, some extra content, and occasionally we hook up and go clay shooting together as a membership group. If you don't feel like joining today, we really appreciate you watching and subscribing. Have a wonderful day.